It's a pleasure to be here. I suppose I should apologise for being old. After I left the investigators, I used to work on Burke's Backyard, and I was eventually kicked off Burke's Backyard along with Gary Egger and John Valder, because we were all too old, and we were told that it was really quite bad for people to have to see such elderly people. It was worse for Gary Egger, who's a fitness guy, because he's much younger than John Valder and I were, but we were somewhat vindicated when the program fell apart and disappeared after we left. I was trying to look after my elderly parents at the time, so it didn't worry me. But what I really want to do this morning is build a little bit on what we were talking. I'm not specifically talking about prostate cancer, but as you heard in the earlier talks, many people have a much greater risk from other health problems. So I'm going to talk more generally about that, but I'm happy to throw in anything about prostate cancer. Oh, this has come out in different colours from what it was originally, so never mind. So I really want to talk about who we should believe, because there's never a day goes by that there isn't somebody saying something about what you should or shouldn't eat. And I find that people are very, very confused about the whole thing. Once upon a time we used to eat, oh, I've got stars, oh, this is really quite interesting. What was available, they ate what was around, and they ate what their culture basically told them to do. These days we eat for these reasons. We eat whatever is most convenient. We eat for whatever is most profitable for the people who are selling us the product, what the retailers want us, and we do consider health and science a little bit, but advertising and market are the biggest aspects of those things. But if we look at what this leads us to, it leads us, oh, the advertising and marketing should have come out as processed foods. I'm very sorry, we've had a little bit of a problem getting this through to you, and there's a few errors that I haven't seen until now. But processed foods now dominate our diet, and that is a big problem. I mean, not all processing is bad. If you had to eat totally unprocessed foods, you'd have very little to eat, but it can be a problem. So we now have a diet that is designed mainly for what it is profitable to sell us. Health is secondary, and whether or not people can afford what they need to eat is largely ignored. It's all packaged. We've got this enormous choice. I love that advertisement where somebody goes along to buy some milk and the woman asks what sort they want. There's about 20 different varieties. And if you go to buy yogurt, it's even harder. I don't like buying things with a whole lot of fillers and gums and emulsifiers, not because I think they're going to harm me, but just because it means it's not real food. And by the time you look along the yogurts, it can take half an hour. And so you're probably better off making your own, I suppose. But we've got this enormous choice of products, many of which we didn't actually ask for and many of which we don't really need. They totally ignore seasonality, so we now have people who don't like apples because they taste floury, and you say, when did you eat an apple? And if you eat an apple in November or December in Australia, it's not going to taste good. It's not apple season. And once upon a time, people knew where there was an apple tree and they had apples in season and they knew they were crisp and delicious, and now is the time to eat apples because it's when they're in season. We give very high status to animal products. When you order your meal at a restaurant, you ask for the lamb or the chicken or the beef or the whatever. If it has vegetables, they will be often an extra charge, but you won't know what the vegetables even are. So we sort of give this great status to animal products. So our industrialised food that we now have is full of all these sort of junky kind of things. If you look at breakfast cereals, some of them are up to 46, 47, 48% sugar. It doesn't actually have that on the label. In fact, I've said I have a couple of criteria for me to retire. There are some people in the food industry who can't wait for me to retire. I said I want the percentage of added sugar on the label. I also want to find the cheesel tree. And when I do those things, I will retire, so I may be here for quite a while. We have these dominant flavours, mostly from salt and from sugar and from fat and from things called flavour enhancers, which you add to products where you haven't got enough of the real ingredient. And if you want to check that out, have a look at a packet of chicken noodle soup or even a thing of liquid chicken soup. The chicken noodle soup in the packet may have no chicken at all, so it'll have all these flavour enhancers. The ones that you buy that supposedly contain chicken may have less than 1% chicken. So they sort of wave the chicken over the top of the vat, I think. So that's just my cheesels bit there. And then we have people who come out with superfoods. And so they say, look, the diet's very junky, so you better have this thing because we've added something to it. Now, some superfoods are actually quite nutritious, and I don't have a problem with them. Kale is one. It's highly nutritious, eaten in other parts of the world, never eaten here before. Now it's become a superfood. And this morning there was a little thing at breakfast at the hotel where I was staying with a little green juice that had some kale in it. It was about this big, sort of like a little medicine glass thing. And I didn't mind it having kale in it, it was terrific. But just recently I had a woman who said it's fantastic now that everybody's having green smoothies because you don't have to worry about your kids eating vegetables anymore because they just have their smoothie. And I thought, how much kale or whatever did they get in this little tiny bit of green smoothie, which, by the way, is only healthy if you have it out of a jar. Have jars reached Port Macquarie? I've just come back from Byron Bay, and if you order anything healthy, it comes in a jar rather than a glass. I'm not quite sure why, but it seems to be better. But this woman then said to me, it's great, you don't have to fuss about the kids not eating their vegetables, you just give them a green smoothie. And I said, so what do they have for dinner? And she said, oh, whatever they like, it's good, you can just give them instant noodles. And I thought, instant noodles for dinner and a green smoothie is not the way to good health. And we have all the other superfoods that have lots and lots of vitamins and minerals in them. Very often they're cheap vitamins, which we're not lacking in any case. So superfoods, I think, is a bit of a problem. Good for the worried well. The problem we have is that the more choice we have, the more we buy, and the more we buy, the more we eat, and then the more we waste. In fact, the food that is currently wasted in the world is enough to feed, the edible food that's wasted, would feed an extra 3 billion people, which is the projected increase in the population. That's the stuff we throw out. But of course we eat a lot of it, and you can spell waste either way, and it works. So when we look at what we're eating in Australia, snack foods have gone up. Savoury snack foods have gone up 43% in the latest survey, and the one before that was done in 1995. Confectionery's gone up 35%. Vegetables have gone down 39%. So we're eating lots of these snacky foods, we're eating lots of fast foods and takeaways. We eat out quite a lot, that can be good or bad. We drink a lot of soft drinks, and then people say I'm really healthy because I have an energy drink. We're eating a lot of instant noodles and we're drinking more wine. Now, it doesn't mean this is a problem, I'm just telling you what we're doing. But at the same time, fruit consumption is low except as juice, and the problem with fruit really comes from juice. If I asked you all to eat 5 apples, I reckon very few of you would get through the apples before lunchtime. But if I asked you to drink the juice and all the calories and sugar from those apples, you could all do it in about 15 seconds. So when you have juice instead of fruit, you don't get the fibre, but you also don't get the satiety, that sort of feeling of fullness from having actually eaten the fruit. Vegetables are all going down except for chips. There was a headline a couple of years ago that said that something or other about the population was doing what the nutritionists wanted and eating more vegetables. And when I looked at it, the only vegetable they were eating more of was chips. So it really doesn't quite work. Milk consumption has gone down, except for flavoured milk, which has gone up dramatically. Breakfast cereal has gone down because people aren't eating breakfast. They now have a breakfast bar or a breakfast drink, because apparently it takes too long to actually sit down and have some cereal. And bread consumption's gone down, and especially whole grain breads. So we're going in the wrong direction in Australia. Currently, the junk food, the extras, supply over 40% of children's energy intake and over a third of adults' energy intake. So lots of sugar, lots of fat and lots of salt. This is not the sort of diet that we want for good health. And if you want to increase your chances of a whole lot of health problems, that's the way to eat. It's what we're doing. So we're actually going the wrong way. We eat too much saturated fat, and I'll talk a little bit more about the current claim that saturated fat is not bad, which is not true. Trans fats, the particular trans fat that's a problem doesn't occur in nature. It occurs when unsaturated fats are turned into fats that are suitable to put into all the snack foods and the confectionery and the pastries and the pies and the biscuits and all those sorts of things. So we eat very poor quality carbohydrates and the salt and the alcohol. You didn't need me to tell you any of that. But the day's meals for many people, and living in a rural community, I find it quite nice that people are more likely to eat meals in rural communities, which doesn't mean they don't also eat lots of snacks.